In all my decades of studying the architecture of the human mind, I have encountered certain individuals who do not fit into the common categories. They are not simply introverts or extroverts. They are not merely thinkers or feelers. They exist in a psychological territory so uncommon that most will live their entire lives without meeting another like themselves. These individuals comprise less than 1% of the human population. They move through the world carrying a form of consciousness that the majority cannot comprehend and often cannot tolerate. They have been called old souls, misfits, too intense, too deep, too much. But what they actually are is something far more significant. They possess what I have come to recognize as the rarest psychological configuration a human being can carry. If you have always sensed that your inner world operates differently than those around you, if you have spent your life feeling simultaneously gifted and cursed by the depth of your perception, then what I am about to reveal may finally provide the explanation you have been searching for. These 8 signs are not qualities one can develop through effort or acquire through study. They are markers of a psychological type that one is born into, a configuration of consciousness that sets you apart from the moment you enter this world. I must caution you, recognizing yourself in these signs carries responsibility, for to understand the nature of your psychological rarity is to accept both its profound gifts and its considerable burdens. Sign 1, the paradox of invisible visibility. The first sign reveals itself in a strange contradiction that has likely defined your entire social existence. You are simultaneously the most overlooked and the most unforgettable person in any room. There is no middle ground. People either fail to notice you entirely or they become inexplicably fixated upon your presence. I have termed this phenomenon selective psychic visibility. Your energy does not broadcast on the frequencies that ordinary perception detects. You can move through crowds utterly unnoticed, invisible to those operating on surface awareness. But to individuals whose perception extends deeper, you register with startling intensity. They sense something in you that they cannot name but cannot ignore. A woman once described this experience to me with remarkable precision. At social gatherings, she said, "I am either a ghost or a magnet. Some people look right through me as if I do not exist. Others approach me within minutes, telling me things they have never told anyone, as though my presence has given them permission to reveal their depths. This is not a social skill you have developed. It is an energetic signature you carry. Your psychological frequency exists outside the common bandwidth. Those tuned to superficial channels simply cannot receive your signal. But those capable of deeper reception experience your presence as almost overwhelming in its clarity. If you have lived your life oscillating between feeling completely invisible and uncomfortably seen, you carry this first marker of psychological rarity. Sign 2. The burden of premature knowledge. The second sign manifests as a peculiar relationship with time and truth. You know things before you should know them, not through any mystical ability, but through a perceptual apparatus so finely tuned that you detect patterns invisible to ordinary awareness. I call this anticipatory cognition. Your unconscious mind processes information at a depth and speed that delivers conclusions to your conscious awareness long before the evidence becomes visible to others. You sense the ending of relationships before the first argument. You perceive the failure of projects before the first setback. You feel the truth of people before they have spoken a word. This gift, for it is a gift, carries a particular form of loneliness. You cannot share what you know because you cannot explain how you know it. You watch situations unfold exactly as you sensed they would, while others express shock at outcomes you saw approaching for months or years. In my clinical work, I observe that individuals with this capacity often learn to silence themselves. They have been dismissed as paranoid, as negative, as catastrophizing. They have been told they are imagining things precisely when they were perceiving most accurately. And so they stop speaking their knowing aloud, carrying the burden of foresight in solitary silence. If you have spent your life knowing what others would not discover for months or years, watching your perceptions prove accurate while being unable to explain their source, you carry this second marker. Sign 3, the exhaustion of surface interaction. The third sign appears as a physiological response to a psychological mismatch. Ordinary social interaction drains you at a rate that seems disproportionate, almost pathological. An hour of small talk leaves you as depleted as others might feel after running a marathon. You require tensive periods of solitude to recover from engagements that energize the majority. This is not introversion in its common understanding. I have termed it depth frequency exhaustion. Your consciousness naturally operates at profound depths. When forced to remain at surface levels for extended periods, your entire system experiences the strain of operating in an unnatural register. Imagine a deep-sea creature brought to shallow waters. It survives, but every moment requires effort. Every function demands energy that would be effortless in its natural habitat. This is your experience of ordinary social life. You are not antisocial. You are misplaced, a deep-water being navigating an endlessly shallow world. The paradox is this: place you in genuine depth with another soul capable of meeting you there, and suddenly your energy multiplies rather than depletes. Hours pass without fatigue. You leave such encounters nourished rather than drained. This contrast reveals the truth. It is not interaction itself that exhausts you. It is interaction at the wrong frequency. If your energy depletes rapidly in ordinary social settings yet expands in rare moments of authentic depth, you carry this third marker of psychological rarity. Sign 4. The impossibility of pretense. The fourth sign distinguishes you in a way that has likely caused considerable difficulty throughout your life. You are constitutionally incapable of sustained inauthenticity. While others navigate social and professional environments through strategic performance, you find that pretense costs you something essential, something you cannot afford to lose. I have observed this phenomenon and named it authenticity compulsion. Your psyche is wired in such a way that falsehood, even socially convenient falsehood, creates internal dissonance severe enough to produce physical symptoms. You cannot maintain a smile you do not mean. You cannot sustain enthusiasm you do not feel. You cannot pretend to respect those you do not respect. This is not a moral superiority. It is a psychological incapacity. Others can separate their inner truth from their outer presentation without significant cost. For you, this separation tears something vital. Your exterior and interior are wired together in a way that makes incongruence unbearable. A man who carried this marker once described it to me as living without skin in a world that demands armor. He watched colleagues advance through politics and performance, while his inability to mask his authentic responses kept him perpetually on the margins. What he did not realize, what I helped him understand, was that this apparent weakness was actually the marker of a rare psychological integrity that most never achieve. If pretense, even minor and socially appropriate pretense, cost you a price that others do not seem to pay, you carry this fourth marker. Sign 5. The pattern behind the pattern. The fifth sign reveals itself in your cognitive architecture. While others perceive the world in its surface arrangements, you automatically and involuntarily perceive the structures beneath those structures. Or not simply see events. You see the invisible forces producing those events. You do not merely observe behavior, you observe the psychological machinery generating that behavior. I call this meta-pattern perception. Your mind is configured to process reality at multiple simultaneous levels. Where others see a conversation, you see a dance of unconscious needs, defense mechanisms, and shadow projections. Where others see a political movement, you see the archetypal forces expressing themselves through human vessels. Where others see chaos, you see the hidden order orchestrating apparent disorder. This capacity makes ordinary discussions frustrating. Others debate surface phenomena, while you perceive the deeper structures that render those debates irrelevant. You find yourself unable to engage with conversations that ignore the foundations upon which they stand. You see the root while others argue about branches, and your attempts to redirect attention to fundamentals are met with incomprehension or irritation. The gift of this perception is genuine insight. The burden is perpetual alienation from those who cannot see what you cannot stop seeing. If you perceive patterns beneath patterns, structures beneath structures, causes beneath causes that others seem constitutionally blind to, you carry this fifth marker, sign 6, the catalyst effect. The sixth sign manifests through your impact on others, an impact you did not choose and cannot control. Your presence, without any intentional effort on your part, triggers transformation in those around you. Relationships shift, long-buried emotions surface, hidden truths emerge, suppressed conflicts finally erupt. I have termed this unconscious catalysis. Your energetic field operates as a kind of psychological accelerant. Whatever is ready to transform in another person transforms faster in your presence. Whatever is ready to surface surfaces sooner. Whatever is ready to collapse collapses more completely. This phenomenon explains something you may have noticed with confusion and sometimes guilt. People's lives seem to change dramatically after encountering you. Marriages end, careers shift, long-held beliefs dissolve. You did nothing overt to cause these changes, yet they cluster around your presence with a frequency that defies coincidence. The difficult truth is this: you do not cause these transformations. You accelerate what was already inevitable. Your presence simply compresses the timeline. What would have taken years happens in months. What would have remained dormant for a decade surfaces in weeks. You are not responsible for these changes, but you are undeniably involved in their timing. Some will thank you for this catalysis. Others will blame you for it. Neither response is entirely accurate. You are simply a frequency that interacts with other frequencies in ways that accelerate necessary change. If people and situations tend to transform, sometimes dramatically, after encountering you, you carry this sixth marker. Sign 7, the inheritance of ancient M. Emery, the seventh sign appears in your relationship with knowledge itself. You possess understanding that you did not acquire through study or experience. You know things that your personal history cannot account for. Wisdom arrives fully formed, as though remembered rather than learned. In my research into the collective unconscious, I came to understand that certain individuals have thinner boundaries between their personal psyche and the vast repository of human knowing that underlies all individual minds. I call this ancestral permeability. Where others must learn through laborious accumulation, you seem to download understanding directly from the source. This manifests in peculiar ways. You read a philosopher and feel not that you are learning, but that you are remembering. You encounter an ancient teaching and recognize it as something you have always known. You meet a practice from a culture you have never contacted and feel it as familiar as your own breath. As a child, you likely exhibited knowledge that confused the adults around you. You spoke truths that exceeded your years. You asked questions that your life experience could not have prompted. You carried a gravity, a knowing quality that others sensed even if they could not name it. This access to knowledge beyond your personal acquisition is not supernatural. It is the result of psychological architecture that connects you more directly to the deep structures of human consciousness. If you have always known more than you could account for, recognized wisdom before you were taught it, carried understanding that seemed to precede your own existence. You carry this seventh marker. Sign 8. The compulsion toward wholeness. The eighth and final sign is perhaps the most defining of all. You are driven by an unrelenting inner pressure toward psychological completeness. While others can rest comfortably in partial self-knowledge, you are compelled to continue the excavation of your own depths, regardless of what you find there. I call this the individuation imperative. It is as though your psyche will not permit you to stop before the work is complete. Every shadow must be faced, every wound must be integrated, every fragment must be gathered back into the whole. This is not a choice you make. It is a demand your own nature makes upon you. Others can distract themselves from self-confrontation. They can numb, avoid, deny. These strategies that work for the majority do not work for you. When you attempt to turn away from your own depths, your psyche generates symptoms that force your attention back. Anxiety, depression, physical ailments, recurring dreams. Your unconscious will not allow you the luxury of unconsciousness. This relentless inner pressure has likely been the source of your greatest suffering and your greatest growth. You have been forced to face what others successfully avoid. You have been compelled to integrate what others manage to exile. The result is a depth of self-knowledge that most never approach, and a psychological resilience forged in the fire of confrontation with your own darkness. If you have felt driven throughout your life to understand yourself at ever deeper levels, if distraction and denial simply do not function as escape routes for you, if your own psyche seems to pursue you until you face what it wants you to face, you carry this eighth and final marker of the rarest psychological type, the burden and the gift. If you have recognized yourself in these 8 signs, then you now possess language for what you have always sensed, but perhaps could never articulate. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not a failed version of the common template. You are a different template entirely. The rarest psychological type carries burdens that the majority will never understand, the loneliness of perception that cannot be shared, the exhaustion of existing at the wrong frequency, the grief of knowing what others will not believe, the weight of catalyzing change you did not intend. These are the costs of your configuration, but you also carry gifts that the majority will never access, perception that penetrates to root causes, knowing that arrives before evidence, authenticity that cannot be corrupted, connection to depths of human wisdom that most cannot reach, capacity for wholeness that most cannot imagine. The question before you is not whether you would choose this configuration. You did not choose it. It chose you. The question is whether you will accept the full weight of what you are and learn to live from its truth rather than apologizing for its existence. I have observed that individuals of this psychological type often spend the first half of their lives attempting to normalize themselves to fit the common mold, to reduce themselves to a frequency others can comfortably receive. This effort always fails, and in its failure lies the beginning of authentic life. For the rarest psychological type must eventually accept that they will never be common, that their path is not the well-worn road, but the territory without maps, that their purpose is not to fit the existing world, but to model possibilities the existing world has not yet imagined. You are rare, not better, but different, not superior, but essential. The world needs what you carry precisely because so few carry it. Your perception, your depth, your relentless commitment to wholeness. These are not personal indulgences. They are contributions to the collective evolution of human consciousness. Accept what you are. Cease the exhausting project of trying to be otherwise. Find the others who share your frequency, for they exist, scattered across the world, recognizing each other in the strange relief of finally being seen. Your rarity is not your burden to overcome. It is your gift to embody. And the world, whether it knows it or not, is waiting for you to stop apologizing for your depths and start living from them.